Hello, and welcome to this week's edition of Whether or Not. I'm your host, Dana Osgood, joined by our forecaster for this week, Connor. Now, Connor, we've been on a bit of a temperature roller coaster over the past couple of days. Is that going to continue into your forecast?
Well, the last few days we have seen a trend of higher temperatures, some very pleasant conditions, not what we're used to for fall, but going into the weekend we're going to go back into what we're more used to, mid-50s and some of those fall chill conditions that we're used to.
So should we bring out the light jacket or the ski coat?
Well, it's just the light jacket. It's not quite ski coat season yet. Give it about a month, we could be there in a little bit.
Well, that's very interesting. But speaking of fall, I hear you have some interesting nature in the news stories this week.
Yes, there's a lot to talk about today. I have some interesting news about pumpkins and their volatility in hot temperatures, as well as an increasing amount of coyote presence in the New York city limits. What about you for your nature in the news?
Those sound really interesting. For my nature in the news stories, this week I have a recap on Hurricane Ian, as well as an amendment to the Montreal Protocol to battle hydrofluorocarbons.
A whole lot to talk about here. Very interesting for our nature in the news.
For sure. And with that, let's get into Nature in the News. Ian had a major impact on the U.S. last week as the first major hurricane to make landfall in the lower 48 this year. At the beginning of last week, the few days before landfall, the storm intensified rapidly, setting its sights on the Gulf Coast of Florida. Ian made landfall in Cayo Costa, Florida at 3:05 p.m. last Wednesday as a Category 4 hurricane. Ian has sustained wind speeds of 150 miles per hour, just shy of Category 5 strength. The primary concern with this storm was its slow speed. Ian crawled through Florida at only around 9 miles per hour, causing extreme flooding. The storm also brought devastating winds and storm surge. Some areas around Fort Myers saw an influx of 15 feet of water. The causeway on Sanibel Island, the only way on or off the island by car, collapsed, leaving those left on the island stranded. Ian weakened to a tropical storm as it traversed northeast across the Florida peninsula. Ian re-strengthened to a Category 1 over water before making landfall again near Georgetown, South Carolina. Despite being weaker, Ian still caused high storm surge and flooding along the coast of South Carolina. Florida will need time and help to rebuild along Ian's path, and some say it'll be a long time before that part of Florida looks like Florida again.
The pumpkin is a staple in fall aesthetics and livelihood, but have the late summer heat waves threatened this fall mainstay? In California, farmers have grown weary over consistently above average temperatures. Pumpkins can be negatively affected by high heat and UV levels, facing issues such as sunburn and wilting if they are not properly taken care of. Preventative measures such as losing leaves as a canopy and revitalizing soil help build up nutrients and shield the pumpkin from harmful amounts of sunlight. In Central California, where much of the state's pumpkins are grown, the maximum temperature exceeded averages 8 out of the first 10 days of September, including 3 triple-digit days. The pumpkin crop would later see some relief in the middle and latter portions of the month, returning to and even dropping below average. Increasing temperatures around the season's change have an ever-increasing chance of disrupting local pumpkin production, prompting growers to have to get a little creative in time for fall.
The Senate was in session last week, and climate change was on the roster, except hardly anyone noticed. They passed an amendment to the Montreal Protocol called the Kigali Amendment. The Kigali Amendment aims to phase out hydrofluorocarbons, or HFCs. HFCs are a climate pollutant found in industrial refrigerants and other sprayable products. They capture heat in the atmosphere thousands of times more efficiently than carbon dioxide, making them a leading player in global warming. Initially, the Montreal Protocol was written to eliminate the use of a similar pollutant, chlorofluorocarbons, or CFCs, that harm the ozone layer, and it was a major success. The goal of the Kigali Amendment is to directly reduce the emissions of HFCs. The passing of the amendment didn't get a lot of media attention and was supported by both Democrats and Republicans in Congress. The U.S. was already on its way to supporting an amendment such as this after one of the COVID stimulus bills in December of 2020 contained a similar idea with regulating emissions. The official ratification of this treaty means the U.S. can be held accountable internationally instead of just at home. This amendment is expected to help kickstart more intense climate action in Congress and the rest of the world alike.
New York City is known for its unique diaspora of animals adapting to an urbanized environment, but some tend to escape the public eye. While species such as pigeons, rats, and raccoons have found a way to survive and thrive in the bustling metropolis, coyotes have begun to emerge in forested regions within the city limits. Fordham University estimates that there are anywhere from 20 to 30 living in New York City. This begs the question, how are they able to survive in such an urbanized landscape? In their findings, the researchers from Freidhoff found that urban coyote diets do not differ much from non-urban ones. Surveys found over 75 samples of fecal matter spread throughout green spaces in the Bronx and surrounding counties. It was then determined that only 22% of human food made up the urban coyote diet, despite 64% of samples containing at least trace amounts of human food. Theories speculate that coyotes are so successful in these regions thanks to a diversity in food sources. Despite the presence of coyotes in America's largest city, the ample number of parks and green spaces give these mammals enough room and resources to avoid the hustle and bustle of the city. I'm meteorologist Connor Freidhoff here with your Central Pennsylvania forecast. Taking a look to start Friday, we have that brief threat of showers, especially for the western portion of the state, but it's pretty much prevalent throughout much of the Great Lakes states and down even here in the Ohio Valley. But if you take a look east of that, more towards the coast, you have these partly cloudy conditions and temperatures remain on the chilly side. For Saturday, we have a high-pressure system down here in Kentucky and West Virginia moving into position and pretty much giving us those cool and dry conditions. We do see temperatures rebound up into the upper 50s for portions of the region. Sunday, same story. That high pressure just moves a little bit to the east into parts of Virginia, but we still have those clear skies, cool conditions. Temperatures will be sitting around the 60s. Speaking of those temperatures, tomorrow 59 with that chance of showers, mainly for the central and western portions of the state. So keep an eye out, maybe bring an umbrella with you on your commute. Friday night, temperatures go down into 30 to 37 degrees. That's frost territory, especially in higher elevations. So keep an eye out in the morning, see if there's a little bit of morning frost on your lawn. Saturday, temperatures go up back to 54 degrees. Not much of a rebound, but the sun will start to be peeking out. Clouds will begin to recede as we move into the evening, where they're completely gone. Skies will clear, 35 degrees to round out Saturday night. Sunday, 60 degrees, pleasant and sunny. Clear skies, a great way to round out the weekend as we have that last blast of summer hanging on. And stay tuned for our feature from Kyle Eck on frost and your garden.
It's early autumn. The days are getting shorter, the leaves are starting to change their colors, and right on par, Mother Nature has been forcing us to bundle up by sending rounds of unseasonably cool air for the transition into October. With all this going on, you may start to wonder when our first frost of the year will come, and it may be sooner than you think. Here is a map showing the average onset of first frost across the Pennsylvania Commonwealth. State College sees its first frost around the first week of October, whereas other places along the Allegheny Plateau can see their first frost as early as the middle of September, and areas near the lower Susquehanna Valley may just have to wait to see their first frost until after Halloween. Frost can form in temperatures as high as 36 degrees, mainly because the ground can lose its heat gained throughout the day and radiates it up into the atmosphere, thus heating the air. This then allows for the ground to be cooler and in some cases fall just a bit below freezing. Now, temperatures are not the only criteria that must be met in order to see frost form, so I spoke with Maya Rather, a senior in Penn State meteorology, more about how frost forms.
Frost forms by taking a parcel of air normally on a clear, calm night and allowing that parcel of air to reach its dew point temperature, but nearly freezing at surface. Once we are able to obtain this, frost will form.
To visualize Maya's input, this is a scenario of how temperature will change with height on a clear, calm night. Mild air that is radiated near the surface during the day will rise into higher altitudes, therefore allowing for cooler air to settle in near the surface. Depending on the temperature and dew point, frost may form. However, it can result from a variety of conditions and show up in different forms as well.
And the types of frost that we were able to see, and most importantly, is radiation frost. That's one of the first forms of frost that we see. And then we also have advection frost, rime, and window frost that occur throughout this time period as well.
Advection frost develops when a freezing cold wind blows over outdoor surfaces such as trees or other plants. Window frost forms when the exterior of a glass window is exposed to freezing cold air, while the interior of the window is subject to moist conditions. Rime forms in wet and very cold climates where water droplets are supercooled and freeze onto surfaces. Now that we know the different types of frost, it is important to note the hazard it can pose on plants.
As the dew is frozen on our plant, this also can freeze the water within our plant. Once this water is frozen, this can cause damage to our cells. And once the temperatures begin to warm up and our plant is exposed to warmer temperatures, the damage is already done, which causes the lack of nutrients.
For our video, here is a pumpkin that I'm going to use in our demonstration. This is going to act as an outdoor fall decoration, and overnight, for very cool nights with temperatures getting below 36 degrees, we can start to see frost form on plants. And you may start to wonder, what preventative action can I take that could prevent frost to develop on my plant so it doesn't get damaged or destroyed? Well, we can use what's called a frost blanket. It could just be a regular pillow cover or just a other fabric covering from frost, and we can fold it up here about an inch or two above the seam, and you can cover the pumpkin or any other plant that you may have outdoors. This will allow warm air that gains during the day. You can see the sun shining today, and this will allow for the solar radiation to kind of stick around the plant overnight so it doesn't drop to near freezing temperatures, and this will allow it to not develop frost.
And now the extended forecast, taking a look at the weekend and the next week ahead. This weekend we could be seeing some pleasant conditions, just a bit of some showers and some drizzle in some spots on Friday, high of 59. Those low temperatures, take a look at those down in the mid and upper 30s. We're starting to see frost territory, especially in the upper elevations of parts of the state. On Sunday, we see temperatures up to 60 degrees, nice clear skies. Those clouds from Saturday clearing out for a nice end to the weekend. We get started for the next work week. Monday, see some clouds. Tuesday and Wednesday, temperatures all the way up to 65 in some spots. We're seeing that last blast of summer just barely hang on for dear life. But then Thursday and Friday, we see those showers start to come back into the forecast, so a pre-weekend soak as we see temperatures dip back down into the 60s and even down into the mid-50s. But then it's that last sort of chance for summer to hang on. We see those seasonal conditions start to make a comeback, and it's going to really start feeling like fall.
Yeah, I think I have a little bit of trouble getting really into the fall spirit when temperatures are still touching the 70s. So we'll look forward to that in just a little bit.
Absolutely. It's hard to enjoy a nice hot apple cider when it's 72 degrees outside. So these cooler conditions are definitely more welcome as we get into the middle parts of October.
I agree. Thank you so much for your forecast. And now it's time for our Weather Whiz quiz question. So this week's question is, approximately how much more efficient are HFCs at trapping heat than CO2? Is it A, tens of times? Is it B, hundreds of times? Is it C, thousands of times? Or is it D, 10,000s of times? And if you chose C, then you would be correct. It's pretty crazy to think about how hydrofluorocarbons are so much more efficient at trapping heat than CO2. It makes it really important that the Kigali Agreement is doing something about it.
Absolutely. We see how much CO2 is in the atmosphere and how much water vapor and other greenhouse gases have an effect on the ozone layer, as well as just climate change in general. It's very important that these regulations are heeded and, of course, followed.
And it's very interesting that it didn't really get any media attention either, whether that be good or bad.
Absolutely. Could be due to some other media chatter, but hopefully this gets the attention it deserves, especially as we move into the winter months.
I agree. Thank you all for joining us for this week's edition of Whether or Not. Be sure to tune in next week for even more. From all of us here, have a good one.